Jay-Z today is without a doubt one of the greatest MCs alive, and perhaps one of the most influential rap moguls to ever exist. It's hard to even imagine a world where Hova isn't this influential, but way back in 1999, everything he worked for could have gone crashing to the ground. The day is November 30th, 1999, and as expected, it turns out to be a great day for hip-hop because we finally got Q-Tip's debut solo album, Amplified. It wasn't just great news for hip-hop heads, it was also a much-needed solo release for Q-Tip and his friends who came together to celebrate with him. Tip's release party happened at the Kit Kat Club in Manhattan, and it had most of our favorite rap stars in attendance, including Busta Rhymes, Lil Kim, P. Diddy, Lil Cease, and of course, Jay-Z. But before Hova arrived at Tip's party, he had also organized his own party just 2 days earlier, and this was for his upcoming album, Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter. Hova's party was a huge success. He performed most of his songs on the album and even brought Beanie Sigel on stage. But something unplanned was suddenly discovered. The new album was scheduled to be released on the 28th of December, but somehow bootleggers had managed to leak the album 1 month before its release. Jigga was pissed. How could his management have allowed this to happen? Angry, he took the mic at his own party and shouted to the crowd, "The bootleggers." Hov had every reason to be angry. The previous year, he enjoyed massive radio airplay after the success of singles from the critically acclaimed album Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. He then went ahead to win the Best Rap Album at the Grammy over guys like Mace and Big Pun. With the release of Volume 3, Life and Times with S. Carter, Hov expected to achieve even more financial and critical success. But with the album leaking a whole month before its release, the rapper knew this was going to affect the official release in some way. Now, we don't know the exact details, but Hov concluded that Lance Rivera, a producer and music executive who worked closely with the Notorious B.I.G., was responsible for the leak, and he wasn't going to let it slide. At this point, we had to go back to Q-Tip's party. Jay knew Rivera was going to be in attendance, so when Hova pulled up shortly after midnight, he was hell-bent on finding Rivera. As soon as Jay found the executive, he walked towards him and asked a question. Instantly, this turned into a loud argument and an altercation began between the two men. From this point onward, the story becomes a little sketchy. Some sources reported that Jay leaned in towards Rivera and then pushed something in his stomach. And some others reported that Jay-Z took advantage of the chaos he began by instructing someone to stab Rivera. But before this stabbing even happened, somebody else had broken bottles on the heads of Rivera and his friends. By the time the dust settled, the scene was a total mess. Jay-Z had disappeared, Rivera was covered in blood, cradled in the arms of Charlie Baltimore, and Q-Tip, the star of the night, was crying on stage. The next day, Jay-Z realized the effect of his actions the previous night and decided to turn himself in to the police. Unknown to him at the time, this was the start of a legal battle that would almost wrench his career from his hands.
A top rap star is busted.
Jay-Z turned himself in tonight, and the cops started working on his rap sheet, accusing him of a stabbing at a trendy party.
At first, Hova denied any involvement in the stabbing, and this only caused the case to drag longer and longer. His argument was simple. Why would he turn himself in if he had really stabbed Rivera? But all the fingers were pointed at him, and if the case went to trial and he was found guilty, the rapper could be sent to jail for as long as 15 years. This wasn't good for Hova, nor was it good for his career. Going to jail means forsaking everything he had worked for, so he did exactly what his lawyers advised, plead guilty. But somehow, this wasn't going to be easy for the rapper. Just a few months before his guilty plea, Jay was caught in another controversy. He and his bodyguard, Hamza Hewitt, were arrested with loaded guns and charged with gun possession. If found guilty, Jay would again be sentenced to a few years in jail. However, in a fortunate twist, this case was dropped after his bodyguard took full responsibility for the weapons. After pleading guilty, the rapper was also sentenced to 3 years probation, a sentence that was way better than spending 15 years in jail. Hova was in and out of the courtroom for 2 years, and there was no doubt that he was happy that this was over. Now, that's all about the case, right? Well, not entirely. 17 years later, in 2016, Cameron had something entirely different to say about the stabbing. In an interview with DJ Woo Kid, the rapper mentioned that the beef between Hova and Rivera was never about the leaked album. Remember Charlie Baltimore, who held Rivera in her hands after the stabbing? The rapper was in a romantic relationship with Biggie before his death in 1997, and it turned out that Hova also liked her at some point. Cameron argued that Rivera was angry that Jay-Z was going out with Biggie's ex-girlfriend, and this was the start of the beef.
The artist and Jay was teaching her the business. It was just it was all under Jay shit. They could say a song leaked or whatever, but it was over Charlie Baltimore.
Does anyone really believe that? Well, this next one will have you in doubt again. In a 2023 interview with DJ Vlad, Rivera finally gives the lowdown of what happened that night in 1999. He began by saying that he was surrounded by a lot of people, most of whom held knives, and while he was trying to get out, he got stabbed in the stomach and shoulder.
I ended up getting surrounded by a bunch of people. It was probably 10 knives that I knew of, and I ended up getting stabbed.
But most importantly, Rivera admitted that Jay-Z wasn't the person who stabbed him.
Was Jay-Z the one that actually stabbed you?
No. Jay-Z was not the guy who actually stabbed me that night.
Rivera goes on further to say that he didn't know where people got the narrative from, adding that the rapper was one of the nicest people he knew. If Jay-Z had stabbed me, y'all wouldn't have got the Black Album because through my whole story, I'm an eye for eye type of guy, he said. Now, this raises even more questions. Why did it take the music executive 24 years to share this with the world? If Hov had somehow ended up in jail, Rivera would be known as the guy who single-handedly ruined his career. But there's just one final twist to the story. In another interview, Charlie Baltimore claimed that Rivera told her several years ago that he was stabbed by Jay-Z.
Coming to the party, I actually walked up and I was on the ground. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm stabbed. Jay stabbed me.
At this point, we can't help but imagine the entire incident as an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Jay-Z moved on from the matter years ago and even makes subtle jokes about it in his songs.
Niggas back up, they know I'm not no fronter. I don't talk shit, I just flip and onion. Sorry, Lance, I'm just trying to advance my quotes. I ain't making you the butt of my jokes.
But the truth? We might have to wait forever for that.